Okay, guys, I'm going to give this a shot. I am Sarah, and I am an alcoholic.
Hi, Sarah.
So, this might go without saying, but I'm a little nervous. Today I'm going to try to tell you how I am recovering from a hopeless state of mind, body, and spirit. I'm hoping to tell you how it happened, and thanks for being a part of this big growth moment for me tonight. So my sobriety date is June 1st, 2024. I have the world's most incredible sponsor, better than all of yours, I promise. And I can confidently say that by the grace of God and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have been relieved of the obsession to drink, and I have found a higher power that helps me live life on life's terms, just for today. And I'm almost done with today. So, of course, I'm scared to be up here, and I laugh at myself about that because that's what got me here. Did I humbly ask for God to help me along the way? I did not. So, my little life started on September 11th, 1975, in Pasadena, California. My parents were high school sweethearts. They grew up together and started their family when my dad got home from 2 tours in Vietnam. He learned to fly helicopters over there. He was larger than life, my dad. My mom came from that strict, buttoned-up, real waspy family, and my dad was wide open and lots of fun. We lived out in Southern California until I was 7. Lots of beach and parties and all the things I remember about California was a lot of fun. And then we moved across the country to Connecticut. My dad took a job with the Secret Service. I didn't know that at the time. But he took a job there and put us in this sleepy little town in Connecticut. But what a difference that was for my family. So my mom went from a place she grew up, a place she knew, to a place that was very different. The culture, the environment, everything about it. And she was a deeply loving, wonderful woman, but pretty emotionally fragile. So from age 7, I was her emotional support. And I didn't know any different than that. We poured her drinks in the mornings. We poured her drinks in the afternoons. We scratched her back to get her to go to sleep. We did all those things as little kids. I have a younger sister who also was there. I have an older sister too, but I'll get to that. So childhood, I remember being the anxious little thing. If you can imagine, I was a skinny little thing. I'm tall now, but I was tiny then. I was very self-conscious. I was fearful of everything on the inside. On the outside, I was the oldest of a colonel in the army. And that guy thought he was going to have a bunch of sons, and he had a couple of girls. So I grew up Fred. I know you guys call me Sarah. But I grew up, you will be everything, you will be tough, you will be strong and smart, and you are capable of anything. When he was around. Granted, he was never around. So 310 days out of the year, he was flying all over the world doing whatever. I don't know. Remember, this is a time where there was no cell phones and nothing but that home phone that rang every time somebody got killed, somebody got hurt, or something happened that he wasn't going to come home. So one of my first memories is my mom sitting me on that toilet seat, putting in my pigtails, and saying, "You are perfect and you will take care of me forever." And I know that. That's why I have a daughter like you. I think I was 5 years old, something like that. So being perfect was my job. And anytime I couldn't do that was a devastating thing for a little tiny thing, with a dad that was never around. So there was a lot of loss and a lot of things, scary things that were happening, but we didn't talk about it. We weren't allowed to talk about it. Because if we did, Mom got upset, and that was hard for us. So my sister was very different from me. She was rough and tumble. She was always getting in trouble. She was giving the world the finger all the time from as far as I can remember. And I had to keep it together. At least that's what I thought, I know that that's not true now, but at the time when I was little, that's what I thought. So I found solace in sports. I was the skinny, tiny, weak little thing that loved sports. I loved watching sports. I loved being in sports. I loved everything about it. I loved being on a team. Being on a team helped me to feel part of something, took that pressure away. And even though I was a swimmer, which is a little bit of a individual sport. I was quiet in the water. I was a distance swimmer. I could just escape everything in there. So drinking was a big part of my family. I thought it was a part of everybody's family. I thought everybody's family, drank every night, drank till they were throwing things around the room. I thought that everybody's family was like that. So when I was 12, I got to go on my first sleepover. My family struggled with money, but there were people in my neighborhood and things that didn't. So I went to this big fancy house because those parents always went away. And we got into the liquor cabinet, and I knew all about it. I knew how to make drinks. I knew everything about it. So I made the drinks, and we all drank lots of them, and it felt great. It felt like all my fears, all my self-consciousness, all of the things went away. And I knew how to do it already. It was a skill I was given. So that was my first experience with getting drunk. Not my first drink, but definitely my first experience with escaping from reality. I had a great high school time, lots of drinks, lots of parties, lots of things like that. Swimming kept me out of trouble most of the time. I only went to the police station a few times. Beer in the car. My dad thought that was funny and cool. And so I, at 17, got a scholarship to go to Gettysburg College to swim. 17, I was definitely not ready. I was so young. I was so not ready to leave the house. My mom was a total disaster. My younger sister was, again, giving the world the finger. She was probably ready for me to go. But I did what I did best when I got to college. I could drink 18 beers with the boys. I could swim hard the next day. I could keep up. And I was accepted because of that. That was where I felt accepted. So that year didn't go well, if you can imagine. I put on lots of weight. I was swimming terribly, and I couldn't function, So I decided that wasn't the place for me, and I needed to go home for a semester. My parents promptly got divorced. So now I'm at home by myself in this house, and at home my dad's sulking in some cabin in the woods, and my mom, she packs it up and heads to California. She can't wait to go back to be with what she knows. What we'll find out later is that she had developed a relationship with somebody and knew where her happiness was going to be, and that was complicated, but anyway, I was alone, taking care of my sister and trying to figure out what life looked like next, because, I wasn't allowed to fail. So I had already failed for a year, but my dad was like, but you'll pick it up. You'll figure it out. So I figured out that I really wanted to be a nurse. I figured out that I was good at caregiving. I was good at taking care of people. So I'd taken care of my mom my whole life, and I felt like that would be a place for me. So I busted my butt and got my grades up and got into a good school in Philadelphia, packed up my life and went over there. I knew some people there already, so it wasn't a total unknown, but it was a big step. I had to pay for that. I had to figure out how to do that, and I had to go to a big city, something I had never done before. College, some of the best years of my life, because I had a real structure. I had some routine. I quit swimming, and I focused on school. But remember, the way that I found acceptance and love was through my drinking, because I was really good at it in my mind. That was how I was loved, because I was fun, and I was funny, and I could hang with the boys and do all the things. So my drinking was mostly in check when I was at Penn, because there wasn't any room for me to keep my job and keep my grades up and stay in my lane. But I was always the biggest drinker of the group. I was always the one blacking out. I was always the one trying all the things. I was always the one laying on the ground at the end of the night. But that was funny to people at that time. So I was getting what I needed, which was love and acceptance, and I was outside of my self-consciousness at that time. So I never went home again. My parents, my dad was still sitting in his shit, and my mom was off on her new life. I knew that my identity was built in this drinking career I was creating, but also in trying to live. I had to sort of survive. And so I excelled at school. I knew if I could focus, I could be good at school. So I did that. And one day I'm getting a fruit salad at the food truck. And this guy walks up and says, "Do you want to get coffee with me sometime?" And I was like, who does that? That's so embarrassing, you know? Anyway, I ignored him for a while, and then coffee was actually martinis. So we went out for martinis, and I that was the day I met my drinking buddy for life. We got married about 2 years later. So he was in med school, and I was finishing nursing school, and then we moved downtown Philadelphia. I worked full-time to pay for the rest of his medical school. We drank and ate, and he is smart, so he was able to get through medical school without much trouble, and we had a lot of fun. But our relationship was completely built off of being drinking buddies. We were the best at it together, and we were alone together. His parents were not a part of his life, and mine weren't a part of mine, and so we were two people, you know, real young people thinking that we could fight the world together. And then we had to leave Philadelphia to go to the rest of his training. So our marriage was built on a lot of stress, and we drank our way through it together most of the time. But my anxiety levels at that point were really kicking in. So the drinking was my way to keep the anxiety at bay. I would go work in the ICU. I would go work with these kids with cancer. I would go do all these really meaningful, purposeful things. But there was so much stress at home and at work that I wasn't managing what was becoming this really big gaping hole in my chest, that anxiety was really forming for me. I had my first massive panic attack in the middle of a rainstorm in Charlottesville. Had to call 911, and my husband was in an operating room somewhere, so that was not a thing, and I didn't know anybody. So I sat in that emergency room thinking, can I just get out of here and get a martini? I'm going to feel better if I can just get home. So I got home, and I just kept it a secret, and I just kept plowing along. So I had to find a way to get out of that job, find a way to get out of that anxiety. And so I found another job. I found another group of friends that drank like me. I just kept adapting to what I had learned, which is you're tough, you're strong, you're Fred, you can do this, you know. My superpower was that I could drink with anybody. I could hang with anybody. But really inside, I didn't feel any comfort in groups. I didn't feel any comfort in anything. I felt like I was shape-shifting everywhere I went. Everywhere I went, I was just being what the group needed or wanted. So after a couple of years of marriage and a couple of miscarriages, we had two sweet twin boys, 2003. My husband was working 24/7, but I was a nurse. No problem, I got this. 2 babies, no problem. That wasn't really the case. We had no money, and we lived in this little house on the top of a mountain that had no electricity regularity. And it was really, really hard. It was hard because he was going through a lot, and that was hard, and I was all alone up there with 2 little things that needed me constantly. I thought that I was going to be a natural mother. I thought, I'm a caregiver, I got this. But I wasn't at all. But thank God for wine. And and unfortunately, that was a big part of their early life. I can actually remember when the babies were born. He came from the operating room. I had to have a C-section. My babies were really big. And they hadn't even brought the babies to me. And he walks in with a bottle of whiskey. And I was like, thank God. I really need that. And we both drank a big shot of whiskey. And that's how we coped with everything. Everything was, we could handle anything if we had a little bit of whiskey. So again, I still think that's normal at this stage in my life. I still think that everybody's doing that because that's my whole family did that. I mean, everywhere we went, all the things we did. So when the babies were about 2, they were not babies anymore. My anxiety kicked in big time again. all of the fight had totally imploded my body. And I called 911 and said, I'm dying. You need to come take my kids. I'm dying. Like, my heart is imploding. I really thought so. Even as a really skilled nurse, I thought I was dying. And they came and they said, Sarah, nobody dies from anxiety. I was like, no, I'm dying. And so they took me and I was like, no, for real. And so they took me to the ER and I laid in that little fetal position on that bed and I said, just bring me back home. I know what to do. I'm sorry. And they made me stay inpatient for a week, and all of my friends brought me drinks. They brought me drinks to the hospital because, remember, my husband works there. So all of our friends worked there, and they all brought me alcohol. And I thought that was also normal. And then I got out, and I just kept moving along. They put me on some antidepressants, and they said, you probably just need a different job and some yoga. And so I said, all right. And I told them, I'm drinking every day. I think I might need to quit drinking. And everybody around me, every paid professional, told me that I just had a lot on my plate. And so that's basically how my time ended in Charlottesville, and we moved to Gainesville, Florida next, which was really the peak of Peter's training. He was gone 18 hours a day, and he was miserable. That irritable and discontent was palpable for all of us. So we hid away. I did what my superpower allows me to do. I found a bunch of women who like to drink, and they actually did drugs, and I tried all those too, which I hadn't really done yet. But my anxiety was so incredible, and my depression was really building up at that point because my alcoholism was really building. So we spent 3 years there. I made some good friends. I got through it, and we had to leave there to go for a job next. So we had to find a job, but we were finally going to get paid, right? This was the pot at the end of the rainbow, right? I was supposed to be excited. I was supposed to be grateful. I was supposed to look forward to this time with this man that I really thought was my partner for life, you know? We were supposed to be happy now. We got here, and this is going to come as a shock, but I wasn't happy. And and so after 3 months, I put my little boys in a U-Haul, and I packed up whatever shit we needed, and we headed to Charlottesville. And I called Peter on the phone. I said, we're out. He said, what? I said, we out. I can't do this anymore. But don't worry, my Yeti was full in that U-Haul. I mean, it is nuts. Yeah, I know. But again, I still think that's normal at this point in my life. I still think that that's how people handle stress, is just have a drink. It'll make you feel better. So I escaped to find peace. I escaped to find that filling of the hole. And I just went back into my life there, where all the whiskey is available and all the excuses. So we stayed there for a year, and my husband, after lots of threatening conversations, said, come back, let's go on a date. I said, all right, I'll do it. So I brought the children back, and my mom came to visit, and we went on a date. And I dropped his incredibly drunk ass off at his apartment and proceeded to get a DUI on the ride back to my apartment. Headlight was out, and I was in no shape to be driving, of course. That wasn't the first time I was in no shape to be driving, but that was the first time I got caught. And I went to jail, and I mean, all the things. And I called my mom, and I said, I'm sorry, you're going to have to come pick me up in jail. She said, well, the boys are asleep. I said, I know, you have to bring them. So that choice to drunk drive was not my first choice. I mean, I've done that many times before this, but I had a little awakening there, right? But it didn't change my behaviors. It didn't change my habits. It only just made me feel more humiliated, more sad, more self-conscious. And all of those, what I'm going to tell you, became very clear to me in my fourth step. They just got bigger and badder. So it was humbling, but I drank my way through that year. And all that humiliation and community service didn't change much. So I was always doing too much from then on. I was always drinking too much. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And although I was taught to be a fighter and struggle was okay, I kept it all to myself. Nobody knew my struggles. I would go to the therapist and I would tell them privately, quietly, like, of course I couldn't tell anybody I was seeing a therapist. And they would always tell me, you just need a change of job. You just need yoga. That's all I can remember them telling me. And I would say, that I've tried that. It doesn't work. I think I drink too much. And they would say, no, you don't drink too much. I'm like, no, I do. So anyway, after a long battle with melanoma in 2016, my mom died. I drank my way through that process as well. I brought her wine in the hospital. Again, my family taught me how to handle stress, and so I did it. I felt a lot of guilt about it after she died, so I drank my way through that too. And I was constantly making excuses. I became excellent at stories. Why was I acting like that? I could come up with a story like you can't believe. I could be a screenwriter. I was really, really good at it. I told lies about where I was spending my days. And then eventually people stopped asking me. I would find the people who didn't ask me about it. They would just let me drink with them. My body was really shutting down at this point. I went to every professional. I went to the psychiatrist and all of those people. I barely ate. And for the last 2 years of my drinking, I was drinking all day. Beers at 4 a.m. on my way to work, airplane bottles and water bottles full of vodka everywhere you can imagine. I was constantly fretting about running out. It was my job not to run out. And it was all a secret in my head. Nobody noticed, I thought. Nobody could tell, but I was functioning. I was running a business, but not really, I was completely unraveling. I was definitely in 100% insane thinking at that time. I was shaking all the time. And again, the psychiatrist gave me a bunch of pills and told me I needed to ask my husband to send me to a retreat in Sedona. I mean, what was that going to do other than I was going to pack a lot of vodka? So by now I'm really at the end of being able to function. I'm really thinking that the boys would be better off with all this mess, that my purpose on earth was gone. I really had all of those, really, those were my thoughts. I mean, I can't believe that today, but finally my business partner, she's a physician, she ran some labs and she called me and she said, you are very, very sick and I can't work with that anymore. So I'm out. And so that was really the tipping point for me. That was like, I'm ready to die now. So I didn't know what that plan looked like. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was ready. I was completely lost. I was completely broken. And that hole that started a long, long time ago was so big and so gaping. And I didn't know anything about this place. I didn't know anything about a way out. I didn't know any other way. No one in my family, a family full of alcoholics, full of people who only drank to deal with life, none of them had been to anything that had done anything for them. So I didn't know what to do. But something in me decided that maybe I should give rehab a shot, that maybe rehab would be a place where I could escape I could do it quietly. I could figure out a way that wouldn't be shameful to my mom, but she was already in heaven by then. But still, I was kind of plagued by that. And so I packed a bag. I found a place in Raleigh that was in this industrial park somewhere. And I called Peter and I said, I need you to drop me off in Raleigh today. I knew it was his day off, so I planned all those things around that. And he said, what are you doing up in Raleigh? I said, I just need you to leave me there. And you can go about your life. I'm ready to just be left. So we went up to Raleigh and I brought I think it was this one, full of vodka to here and a little bit of electrolytes, because that helps. And I was really good at making those water bottles. Drank that the whole way there. And I had another one in the car, back up. And we go in, I tell the lady my story, and she says, "You're perfect for this place." I was like, "Great." So then we go out there. My husband's like eating all the snacks they have out there. And we go to the, he's like, "What in the hell is going on right now?" And on the way there, I told him I wanted to die and all those things. And he just is staring out at the road. We get into the business office and they tell him what it's going to cost. And he says, "Well, what does that look like? Like, what are you guys going to do?" And they tell him that they'll figure it out. And he's a doctor. He's like, "That's not going to work for me. What are you going to do? What are you going to give her to detox? What are you going to give her after that? What does the program look like?" And they say, "We'll figure it out. It's all individualized to her." And he says, "We'll think about it." He says, "Sarah, grab your bag." I'm like, No, I'm staying here. This is where I'm staying. I got my bag packed. I got my jammies. I'm staying here, and I got my water bottle. And I'm going to grab the one out of the car, too. And so we get in the car, and I am just furious. I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm going to get better. They're going to help me here." And he's like, "They want all your money. I didn't hear anything about what they're going to do to help you." And I'm just so angry. But he has me driving the car. So I'm driving the car, downing my second water bottle. And we're halfway through the ride home, and we get a phone call from a friend who we've known for 10 years. He was in our wedding before that, so that's however many years that is. Math's not my strength. And he says, "What are you guys up to?" And Peter tells him what we're doing. And he says, "I've been waiting for this." And Peter says, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, there's a place up the street from your house. And Sarah should be there at 6 o'clock tonight." And I'm like, "I'm not going there. I don't know what that place is. I'm not doing that." I'm acting like a 4-year-old. I'm such a brat, and I'm so out of my mind. I'm so mad at him. This was what I had figured out was my solution, and he won't let me do it. And it's just, he won't let me do anything. And so we get home. He says, "I really think you should go. Do you want me to bring you? Do you want me to go with you?" I'm like, No. First of all, I'm not going anywhere with you. And secondly, I don't know where that is, and I can't go there. I don't know who those people are. I don't know what that is. I can't do that. And so in total, just anger and teenage shit fit, I get in the car, I slam the door, fill up another water bottle, and I head out. I can't find this place. I'm driving around. Of course, I'm not sober, and I'm driving around, and I can't find it, and I finally see some lights on and some people sitting out on the patio, and they're laughing, and they're smoking some cigarettes, and I'm like, maybe this is it. But why are they laughing? So I get in, and this sweet woman gets up from her seat, and she says, "Are you looking for the Wilder building?" I said, "I don't know. I think so." She says, "Welcome home." And she took me inside, and there were some people sitting at the table, and it was flipped around. And they got some books out, and they say, "You want to sit right here?" And I am broken, I am lost, I am a mess, and I am not sober. So I am not sure where I am. I'm not sure what's happening, but I listen to them speaking, and they're laughing, and they're talking to each other, and they're happy. And so I stay for that, and she says, "Do you want to stay for the next one?" I was like, "Definitely. I can't go home. This place is so happy." And so that's the beginning of my recovery process. I found this magical building that I didn't know anything about, that isn't on the Google, that isn't easy to find. But now it is my fastest destination. I could come here on autopilot because I'm here every day that I could possibly be here. This place has 100% saved my life. And I'm grateful to tell you about it. So the first couple of days, I wasn't ready to give up my water bottle. I was terrified. I was terrified of withdrawal. I had this fantasy in my head of what that looked like as a nurse. I was terrified of what life was going to be like without it. And so I sat through 3 meetings a day. I would go home and get in my bed and fill up my water bottle and come back. I was filling it up a little less with vodka and a little more with electrolytes. And I met some people who invited me to come back. They kept saying, you should come to the next one. You should come back. And I couldn't believe that they wanted this huge mess. I mean, they didn't know where I was coming from, what I had done, what my story was. They didn't care. They were accepting me with all my faults. They were accepting me with all of my mistakes and with all of my darkness, my secrets and all of those things. So the first 30 days, the feelings and the thoughts were intense, but I forgot one part that was important. So after those first few days, on June 1st, the woman who was going to become my sponsor, she walked up to me, and I had gotten to know her a little bit over the last, 48, 30, 72 hours. She handed me this coin, and she said, how about trying not to drink today? Looked me in the eye, and she said, I think you can do it. And this coin says, acceptance is the answer to all of my problems today. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew that she was going to be there for me, that she was going to be there in the hours that I didn't know if I could do it, in the hours that I thought I was going to have. I mean, I was sweating and shaking, and I did get a little bit of medical detox from some friends. So I was able to take a little bit for the first couple of days. But this fellowship kept inviting me back. They kept asking me to come back. And each day, with the love and support of my sponsor and this fellowship, I cried, I sweated, I shook, but I kept coming back and listening to what you had to say. And again, by the grace of God, she didn't have to work, so she spent lots of time with me. She sat there with me while I cried it out, while I said, do you promise that those promises are real? Do you promise that I can make it through today? Do you promise that all of the shit I've done is going to be something that I, can live with and live through? And so I spent hours a day here, and she showed up for me, but you guys showed up for me. You showed up and let me sit in my seat. You let me be here. You let me figure out how I could get through one more day. The promises, that really shook me. My life was 100% unmanageable. And there was hope for me in step 2 because I was definitely insane. So all of those things, as I heard them, as I never had heard them before, I was like, check, okay, yes. And then she got on her knees with me, and we said that 3rd step prayer. And I have not gone a day without it. I have not gone a day without that 3rd step prayer on my knees every single morning. And I learned that not only from her, but from my early risers crew. And I was starting to believe that what they were saying, they actually believed. That they really did have a life that was unrecognizable from the beginning. So they taught me unwavering discipline. They taught me that it had to be unwavering. It had to be painstaking. And I had to be willing to do those 2 things. I had to be honest, and that God, I wanted to know, was available to me. I always wanted to know God. I always wanted to know what everybody was talking about. I always really believed that was possible, but I couldn't figure it out. All those Bible studies, all those days at church, all those things I tried. I was trying to understand it with my mind. I was trying to intellectualize it. I was trying to figure out what that meant in a way that I learned things in school. So without all that alcohol in my system, as I started to clear out at that 30-day mark or so, I was feeling all the things, and it was hard, but I felt relief. To feel was something I hadn't done anymore. And it was way beyond me. This was God helping me to feel, helping me to know that it was okay to feel, that it was okay to be not okay, that it was okay to be uncomfortable. So inventory, she sat there and she listened, and she shared her own journey with me as I barfed out all of it. And by the way, I drug my heels on that for sure. It was painful. It was painful to think about all the things that I had been in denial about, that I had been lying about, that I had been afraid to tell anybody about. There were a lot of secrets that were eating me alive, that were ripping that big black hole open more and more. And then 5, 6, and 7 changed me forever. And I don't have the words for it. I definitely don't. I don't have a good way to articulate how incredible that was. But she made me do that thing where you have to go sit by yourself. She said, and now you go and you read and you sit by yourself and you ask God to do what seemed to be the impossible. And I had to be really humble. I had to be really willing, and I had to be really open to that idea. And I was, because she had given me the courage. She had showed me, and my fellowship had showed me that if I was willing and unwaveringly disciplined, that I could be free. And that was a thing that I didn't think was possible. So I got up from that bench, and I was physically different. I was physically different. I was made differently at that point. I can't explain it to you. It was a spiritual moment for me in a way that I felt like God was inside of me now, that he was with me. And so the next step is my amends and working on my conscious contact with God each day. And for me, I find that in my beginning of my journey was a lot of service work and connecting with you guys. And I was a chairperson for the 11 o'clock meeting on Sunday mornings. And that wasn't necessarily something I understood yet, but it was something that Donnie put me in that role. And I can see why now. To connect with my fellowship, but also to start thinking about what conscious contact looked like. What did that mean to all of you guys, so that maybe I could figure out what it meant for me. Today I ask God to remove me from myself to find that conscious contact. I try to follow his will, not mine. And that's something that I didn't understand a year ago. I didn't think that was something I could do. Every morning I surrender to this disease that I know is in me and waiting for me, like you said, doing push-ups outside. And every night I thank God for the miracle that I have today, which is freedom and the choice to be better every day, to seek him, to seek your help, to be of service, to do what God intended me to do, to have a purpose that is not what I had created. All of these expectations, all of these things, all of these fears, all of these ego-driven things are not for me. I am still amazed by this. And Maxie, you promised me a life that is totally unrecognizable. If I was willing and put in some work, and I did. And I feel like it is, my life is totally unrecognizable. I don't think about drinking at all. I think about what that looked like before. I think about when I see others. Recently I went on a plane and I saw what it would look like for me if I picked up again. Because I have relapsed, I already told you about that, so many times before I got here. So I saw and I felt firsthand what it would be like if I picked up again. I would be right there where I left off. It wouldn't be a little sip. It would be 4 Tito's in a tiny glass down the hatch. And that is scary to me. And I'm happy that that's scary to me. And you taught me that. So today, that gaping hole, that big jagged thing I used to explain to every therapist, every psychiatrist, every paid professional in this world, they would just look at me like I was crazy, and I was. It's smaller now. It's not, when I look in the mirror, I don't see it. And that is a miracle. I am far from perfect every day. But I am a work in progress. I work every day to feel like I'm more connected to this fellowship, that I'm more connected to my higher power. And that's not a mindset I've ever had either, that progress is okay, not perfection. Optimism, peace, joy, those are words that I live by now. Not dread, constant fear of the unknown. I don't get wrapped around the axle like Russ says. I had to learn about that one. I no longer shapeshift. I no longer try to be what you need me to be. I know that that's not coming from me. That's coming from God every day, what I choose to call my higher power. It comes from the example my sponsor sets for me every day. She reminds me that perfection is not necessary, that I am what God wants me to be. I'm part of something bigger now. I'm part of something that gives me purpose, that gives me a feeling of acceptance. I feel like I am loved in here. And I know that love doesn't have to be earned anymore. I know that this fellowship taught me that love just is, if I believe that it's real and that I don't have to earn it. I can just be me. I'm no